Aloha, fam. Welcome to episode 2 of the Psychic Podcast. I can't believe I'm doing this. Um, if you were with me last week, I did an episode with my bestie, Robin Hill, and we were chatting, just kind of shooting the shit, doing the talk about consciousness and care for humanity. And this week is a little bit different, solo podcast. And really, I'm a novice at this, so bear with me as I experiment and utilize Facebook Live and Spotify and other modes to share my voice in the world and community. And I received a message from a stranger recently when I was at a coffee shop, and he was like, you should really get back into podcasting. And as soon as that happened, I just ordered a camera and got this going. And it's a vulnerable spot to pursue and share gifts with the world, but I really feel like this is the beginning of a very beautiful journey for me in sharing all that I've experienced with regards to psychic experiences, clairvoyance, ghosts, you name it. I've had some pretty out there experiences, and so I have a lot of stories to share in this regard. Um, but first things first, I want to get into the consistency of sharing the astrology of the week. So today is September 16th, 2024. We are on the precipice. I don't know if you can feel it, of a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. So for me, I feel like, given that we're such watery beings, and if it's true that we're connected to the tides and the waters of what's being guided by the moon, then I truly feel like I feel this sensitivity like in my physical body. So even right now, like, we're feeling the culmination and the climax of this full moon. So I'm located in Hawaii. Wherever you are in the world, you might be feeling it even more so if you're on the east coast of the US, or you're um, in the western part of the world. You'll be feeling it in the next few days. But basically, what you might be feeling is a sensitivity to Piscean energy, especially with regards to the full moon being in the sign of Pisces, which is ruled by Neptune, who rules the ocean, rules the etheric realm. I personally feel like a bit dreamy, and I can really like feel it in my head and my physical body. You might be feeling a little bit out of it, like you're in between worlds. And I feel like being empathic, being very sensitive, I'm the type of being that feels this way most of the time, but even more so when the moon shifts signs into a water sign like Pisces. So themes that are going to be coming up with this eclipse, because eclipses are cycles of the moon. They have a polar opposite sign. So Pisces opposite is Virgo, which will have another moon that will kind of be connected to this one in about 6 months' time. We're also going to have a series of eclipses for the rest of 2024. We have eclipses every year. The cycles of the moon change and shift just like the ocean tides. And right now, I think the themes that we're probably moving through as a collective are in regards to empathy and compassion. So right now, in the astrology and the ecliptic, according to Placidus Tropical Astrology, the moon is moving over Saturn, which is also retrograde in Pisces at this time. And then tomorrow, for me, the moon, when it becomes most full in Pisces, it will connect with the planet Neptune itself, which is the ruler of this moon. So the moon and Neptune are going to come together. just really amplifying this energy of spirituality, healing, depth, the etheric realms. And then it's going to make an opposition to the polar opposite sign, the sun, which is in Virgo. So we're in Virgo season right now. And Virgo has a lot to do with purification, analysis, perfectionism, innocence, harvest, childlike energy. So that'll be happening tomorrow, Tuesday, the 17th, for me, if you're in Hawaii. The nodes of the moon, okay, the north and south nodes, you may have heard about these aspects before. I'm just looking at the camera and I'm noticing I'm like holding the mic over my face. I'm gonna just the nodes of the moon, they play a large part in the collective astrology, I feel. So the nodes of the moon, the north and south nodes, are in Aries and Libra in the ecliptic. They spend about 18 months' time in a different sign. So in the world, we've really felt the amplification of war over the past 18 months. And so these nodes, the north and south node that are in the sign of Aries, are squaring, which brings a lot of tension to the planet Mars, which is the ruler of Aries. And Mars right now is in the sign of watery Cancer, which is not the best placement for Mars. So Mars, being the warrior, being in the sign of the mother, is not a comfortable feeling for the planet Mars. And so Mars is squaring the nodes right now, and that to me feels like there's clearly this push and pull between the masculine and the feminine within the collective, but also the masculine and the feminine balancing within us. Because always we're going through a series of transformations through the collective astrology, and there's this masculine and feminine tension happening. Chiron is opposing Venus in Libra in Aries, and Venus is going to square over to Pluto as the week goes on. We're going to be feeling, because Aries and Libra are opposites, and the north and the south node is in Aries and Libra, this is a healing within the relationship within ourself with Aries and relationships with others. So like there's this longing, and we've been taught in the collective to be in relationship or be in lovership with another. And other astrologers that I follow, shout out Earth to Coyote, was speaking a lot about how the collective consciousness has this longing, but really what's happening is we're really learning to come back to the one and come back to the self in the center. So it's uncomfortable to face harsh truths if things are not aligned in relationships. And you know when things are not aligned, or rather you understand when there are certain lessons being learned in relationships. And I can actually speak to this personally, witnessing the ebbs and the flows of myself moving in and out of relationship more recently, where now like it feels very much like a culmination point for me, where it's like I've come back to center, and though not an easy moment, I have personal placements Mars and in the sign of Aries, so my physical body feels very connected to the warrior type, but I also have Chiron next to Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. And so right now we've got Mars in Cancer, and all of this energy kind of pulling on the feminine and the yin, and calling the feminine within us to have compassion for the warrior aspects within us that have hurt each other, or have created patterns of fighting one another in order to regain some sort of like sense of control. uh, so these are themes, you know, these are real themes that I can say are definitely happening for me, and I know are probably happening for you within your day-to-day life. And so with the full moon being in Pisces, there's this energy of like boundlessness, because Pisces is just openness, complete boundlessness, and it can be beautiful, healing love that is just meant to connect every being that exists in this time and in this reality in that way. Pisces is the 12th sign in the zodiac, is, in my opinion, probably the wisest of us all, even though in its shadow, it can lack boundaries and it can lack um, like understanding of this is my space and that's your space, because the irony is like if we're all connected, that is the illusion of truth, is that we are just all connected and that there aren't bounds. Whereas Virgo as a sign, as a sun sign, is very adamant about maintaining boundaries and purity in its steadfastness to be critical of when boundaries are crossed. And I can really speak to that because I have a Virgo moon. So I am really feeling this full moon healing that we're all experiencing. And yeah, I'm grateful for this opportunity in this space to just really dive deep and be real and vulnerable with you guys about astrology and how it plays a part in my personal life. Yeah, I guess 2 weeks ago I went through, I don't even know if it's like being categorized as a breakup, but well, we'll just call it that. And it was a necessary action that I feel is not only serving me, but is going to ultimately serve the collective. Because when you become more in your wholeness, like Aries, the sun sign, is the first sign in the zodiac. So if we're talking about the full wheelhouse, we go from Pisces, which is the end, into the beginning, which is Aries. So if we're going to start over in this time, it's really important actually to look to the nodes of the moon right now in the collective, and the Aries within each of us, which is the masculine, which maybe this is triggering for a lot of women out there, because I've noticed for both men and women, always, we're constantly learning the dance and the balance of healing these wounds that we've had for so long in so many generations and so many walks of life. Aries energy is about steadfastness, resilience, forging forward, the eternal flame, being the leader in your life. And so, yeah, this freaking experience and relationship for me lately has just really blasted my heart open, as it always does, and has given me the opportunity to really harness all of the gifts that I am here to be of service with. And what could be better than that, to ultimately receive the ultimate healing and to be able to serve the collective, right? So here I am, a walking example of what it means to be human and just raw and real and vulnerable. And in that heart opening and that sharing, just really getting to talk with you guys about how much I love astrology and how astrology has really freaking served me in my life and given me so many opportunities and gifts. So yeah, by Friday of this week, by this weekend, we're going to have realizations and healing when the moon moves over Chiron. So Chiron could be considered the wounded healer in astrology, as in, I'm still not quite sure if astrologers are dubbing it as an asteroid or a star, but whatever, this archetype, as the wounded healer, the moon is going to be moving, as it does on a day-to-day basis. It changes signs. It's going to be moving over Chiron, and then it's going to move into the sign of Taurus by Friday. So the healing that we're going through is from the end into the beginning, right? The rebirth, because we go through the cycles of the end and the beginning with each cycle of the moon and each change of the seasons of every planet in the star system in astrology. This is the evolution of astrology. And it's so deeply tied to Pluto as well, because if you follow me, I'm sure you've heard me talk a lot about Pluto in Capricorn, and the shifts recently that were made where this planet, Pluto, the sign of the symbol of destruction, moved back into the sign of Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn, who really, in my opinion, rules the gates of death and is the father of time and discipline and hard work. And so you may be feeling, the elephant in the room, which is you better get to work or, your spirit won't evolve. So literally, Pluto is such a massive symbol of our evolution in the collective astrology. And so from September 1st, when Pluto retrograded back into the sign of Capricorn, it'll be here for the next 2 to 3 months. It'll move back into Aquarius, which was the energy and the energetics of what we felt back in March when Pluto moved into the sign of Aquarius. So we had a little taste. We've had a little bit of a taste of Aquarius with Pluto moving back and forth into this sign. And this is the final countdown. That is what's coming through. It's the final countdown as far as our collective evolution goes with these old structures in society that we have really witnessed, especially in politics, because Capricorn energy rules, and Neptune rules politics as well. So we're really seeing this like height of heights of what, the heavenly bodies maybe have created for us to evolve to our highest sector in this time. It's a lot. It's uncomfortable. It's destructive. It's confronting. It makes you question reality. And that is the shadow of Piscean energy, and what this full moon, I think, is going to do for each of us is it's kind of questioning everything. It's questioning, whatever your deepest wounds are that need the most attention at this time for your healing, your ultimate growth. And man, I mean, the symbols and the synchronicities can be so loud. And I'm not saying that every single sign and synchronicity should be taken verbatim, but like, just to give you guys an example of like what happened for me 2 weeks ago when I went through this relationship shift, like literally had a dead rat at my door the following day because we set rat traps, but it was so confronting. Centipedes, 2 of them, like, because most of the time centipedes travel in pairs, which is beautiful and freaking creepy. You can still hear me? But anyway, oh, we're back. Okay, so it was creepy as all get out to see these centipedes, and I haven't seen one since. And so to say that these shifts are, no big deal is so far from the truth. Like every shift and transformation that you make in your life on a soul level, that in my opinion is so deeply supported by our ancestors and by the people who love us, it is affirming. It is so affirming for me to like live my life, especially here in the Hawaiian Islands, where the animals and insects and spirit is so loud. It's so big, you guys. I mean, you have to just like take a second and like reel it in, especially with this full moon, and just recognize all of the things that you have moved through in your life up until this point, um, that is what is important and what's required, I think, for this shift of the full moon, given that we're talking about Pisces and Virgo energy, because Virgo is an earth sign, and Virgo is very rooted in the messages from spirit, because Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is connected to Hermes, is connected to heaven, God's heavenly messenger. And in my opinion, these archetypes in astrology are just so physically real. When I study my own chart and when I study people's charts, it is such a physical embodiment that can be harnessed in these times. Yeah, my God, I'm so excited. I'm so over the moon about being here with you guys that I'm like literally sweating. I'm sitting here and just like sweating because it's like rapid transformation, rapid fire. But yeah, these are the main themes of the week that you're going to be feeling in the astrology. And by this weekend, and I was kind of looking toward the end of September, which I can't freaking believe that we're already at the end. It's the middle to the end of September. Like, I think several people came up to me today and said that this month has been flying, and I don't know why that is. Clearly, there's an amplification of time space, and we're all feeling it. But by next weekend, so by like the 28th of September, the sun is going to be merging with Mercury, which is what I'm kind of getting at here in Virgo. And I think we're really going to receive clear guidance by that point, if you're not receiving it already, which I'm sure you are, because Pisces is very etheric and very spiritual and very connected to our ancestors and spirituality. So you're probably receiving messages now that are very consoling to the heart and spirit, hopefully very healing. It should feel like healing waters is what I'm receiving this full moon. It should feel like, peace at its highest degree. It should feel like things are going the right direction, even though it's confusing and confronting. So that's the astrology for this week. Wow, I just spent the first 20 minutes talking about that. And I am sort of allowing myself to just open up in this first to second episode of the Psychic Podcast. Let's see, where shall I go from here? So I wanted to touch base with you guys about the reasons behind this creation, and kind of give you some backstory and some background of who I am as a being and how I got here as Astrologer Babe. It's been an amazing, wild adventure, but I'm going to touch on just like how I became Astrologer Babe, how I became part of the Psychic Podcast. So I'm fortunate enough where I grew up with a very spiritual and intuitive mom, and my parents are very artistic and musical. And I started dabbling in the psychic arts at a very young age. I was having really metaphysical and paranormal experiences, and I would see spirits in like windows. I would see apparitions and ghosts like standing in the road, and like, I was having some pretty out there experiences. And when I was around the ages of 11 to 15, I can remember coming across books that my mom had laying about regarding astrology and birth dates and nutrition. And I started reading about the planets at that time. And that was a pretty cool, very mystical opportunity to start at such a young age, having an opportunity to just like get to know this realm. Although I didn't know at the time that astrology was going to become such a major role and play such a an important part in my representation of sense of self. And for a long time, I denied the astrology part because the psychic part was very real too, and still is, and is integrated, I think, in both. Um, but I remember my mom took me to my first psychic, and her eyes were like glued open. She had these like wide eyes with like lashes, and she looked so witchy. I remember, and I think that was later actually. That may have been around the age of 21. I went to a psychic, but even before that, my mom took me to a couple of psychic stores, um, and I was learning about crystals. And as I got older and entered into my 20s, the experiences started to get really loud, and I was starting to see some extraterrestrial things like spaceships and stuff, which I can tell you guys about in another episode. I feel like I need like a whole episode just to break down the ghost stories and the alien stories because I have so many. But yeah, I started having these psychic experiences that were just like, okay, clearly there's more to life and more to my life than, you know, I've been taught in classical Catholic structured upbringing. And I grew up in Jersey. And yeah, so then flash forward like in my late 20s, when I entered my Saturn return. It was around the age of, well, I guess I'll go back a little bit. When I entered the age of 24, I met a man, a Jersey boy, and we got married 2 years later, at the age of 26. And I knew that I was going to start studying Reiki and energy healing. And so I started studying that, and I was receiving all these downloads about how, um, you know, maybe this wasn't exactly my life partner, even though it was a very important relationship in my life. So he and I, you know, kind of didn't fully resolve our differences, but we decided that we were going to separate. And I ended up meeting, I had known a psychic man from Australia and, you know, decided I was going to go to Australia, and I spent 6 months there. And man, the psychic experiences I had out there were wild. That's a whole thing too. I'm gonna have to freaking make I'm gonna have to make like an outline of all the psychic experiences and stories. That way, I can really touch on all these stories and anecdotes because they're so amazing. Like the experiences I've had with people who've passed away, and just the the expansiveness of those connections and the truth and the synchronicities. I'm going to do that. I'm going to write out an outline. That way I can tell those stories and break them down into these podcasts. But yeah, so I went to Australia and I was having those experiences. And then my gal, Samantha, shout out Samantha, from college, was living in Maui. And I came to Maui 6 months after that. So this was when I started to enter into the Saturn return. And I had traveled a little bit, but I hadn't really given myself an opportunity to like set myself free and really follow my heart. And so I made my way to Maui, and that was in 2018. And when I got to Maui, it was just like, holy crap, like what is this place? Like this is literally what I've been waiting for, as far as connecting to spirituality and the psychic arts goes. And I landed, and it was just like, oh, you know, the spirit of Maui, the aloha, the people, the Hawaiian people, everything just really started speaking very loudly. And aunties and uncles were doing the beautiful act of touching foreheads with me and breathing with me and introducing me to the heart and spirit of what Maui is and the aloha of the Hawaiian Islands. And yeah, that's it. Now 6 years later, you know, here we are. I personally went through and experienced the Lahaina fires. And so that was like another, bump in the journey of like coming back to myself and just transforming over and over again and coming back to the heart and spirit of who I am and getting more rooted and grounded. And I have never felt so stable and I've prayed so long for this feeling. And here we are. And so getting to have this opportunity to have a podcast studio, to have a place to live in which I can create from this space that feels really rooted and grounded within myself is like such a win, you guys. Like I can't even begin to express. So now I am the age of 34, which is crazy to me to say out loud. I just feel like that's so wild. I'm just like, where did the time? I totally understand what people say now when they say that time is like, you know. So yeah, here we are, and it's another day, another beautiful opportunity to grow and experience and share all that I've experienced. I'm just gonna take a collective breath there because that's like a can of worms. That's a can of worms alone. So yeah, welcome to Astrologer Babe Studios. This is my personal space, so you're invited. And what has been coming up thematically with regards to Pisces again is like this element of boundaries. And a lot of people like to speak about boundaries, and it's such a complicated topic, but it's playing a massive role right now in order to really allow us, I think, as a collective to get to the heart and spirit of who we really freaking are, like on a soul level, like no holding back and no fakeness is really going to make it, in my opinion. It just feels like if you're still moving through this reality trying to be someone else or ignoring how you really feel, then you're just going to get confronted. And that's what Pluto in Capricorn, I think, is bringing up for people right now who are really struggling. Because Capricorn, being the father of hard work and the father of time, is going to feel very dark. And especially with Pluto in this conversation being the ruler of death and rebirth and destruction, is going to break down everything that no longer serves, and every part of us that is just going to crumble in what's being asked of us and what's required to show up in this world for service. And Virgo season, Virgo in its light really embodies and imbues service. And if you're thinking about the balance between Pisces and Virgo, it's really about being of service in a balanced way for humanity. Like the shadow side of Pisces energy is going to be serving the collective from a place of, self-serving. And I think that there are Virgo aspects to speak to that as well, where, if you're going through this reality and you're serving yourself and you're only thinking about yourself and you're not thinking about what it means to be of service, this is where this stuff gets freaking confronted in this time. And I think that's why people are really like, people who aren't being real right now are really, the veil has lifted and people see if you're being a fake MF, you know what I mean? If you're being fake as AF, then people are going to see that, and it's the writing is on the wall. Like that's why politics is so off the charts, off its rocker right now, because if you have the eyes and the heart in order to see if someone's not being real and if people are lying to you, that's what this is now. It's like nobody's going to be able to tell a lie. Like you're going to see it straight away if you can feel truth within your heart and spirit and you're walking in this world in truth and heart and spirit. So I personally have been witnessing this, especially like when I go through these transformations and transitions in relationships, like where I feel particularly vulnerable. It's like when you, as a sensitive being, feel particularly vulnerable in this time and you're moving through this reality and you're like going out in public and like conversing with all walks of life, all beings, like different frequencies and levels and layers to all of the people that we meet, right? It's all serving us in some way. I've been seeing in a very loud way just how much I have to hold my bounds. And what I mean by that is like when it comes to like the type of being that I am in this time, I recognize that I have a certain kind of light and vibration and frequency that I carry. I take full ownership and I understand that there is a certain kind of vibration that is very lovable and very attractive to many. You know, there's a magnetism in what I believe to be the scorpionic placements maybe within me or the Taurus placements within me that are maybe sensual or feminine or attractive to people. And so I'm taking full ownership of like looking at my own chart and applying that in a real life way or a real space where it's like I see and witness these energies being thrown around all the time. And I think that there are Piscean elements to this, and that Pisces energy is boundless love, where in a way that is like that's reality. It's like love is love, and it's exchanged among beings and people, whether we like it or not. Um, and whether you block someone or not, the love is still felt, and healing is still going to happen. So I think for me, being a Virgo moon, I think where the boundary has been for me is like really being steadfast and true and speaking, using the voice and the words, because Mercury, being the ruler of communication and the ruler of Virgo, gives me that opportunity, especially being a Gemini sun. So I got double Mercury there, and Scorpio rising. Uh, I'm gonna be the type of being that's like gonna give the truth in a way in which it might be jarring for most or uncomfortable for most if I stand in my bounds. But it's a necessary action, and these have been skills that I still sometimes struggle with, that I'm building up over time from life experience. But like looking at myself as a being like 6 years ago when I first moved to Maui, like maybe I think there was a lack of self awareness where I wasn't able to take ownership of the parts of me that were making people feel a certain way, and then not being able to recognize the level of ownership that I have over myself and my own body, which I think is a people pleasing mechanism, that many of us maybe have told a story about ourselves from childhood regarding like uh, what it is that prevents us from being able to show up in a way in which is most self-honoring, with regards to boundaries. And so when I say that this has been like a full circle culmination of learning, I really mean that. It's been, and it's constantly like, oh, okay, like a check-in, an opportunity to check in with, okay, how were my boundaries today, and how did I show up in that, and also like being like allowing myself to forgive myself for things. I think Virgo energy, especially, can be very self-critical. So there are elements in Virgo season, and especially if you have Virgo placements, that can be very critical of self, critical of others as well. There's a beauty, I think, that I've really been embodying with like self judgment and also judgment of others, where I've been allowing myself to be really authentic and real and raw about how I really feel, and just sort of like laughing at the humor of it all, of like what it means to be human, and like all that. So I think it's all really good. Ultimately, it's serving me to become the best version of myself, and hopefully it's teachable, right? Hopefully, like, we're giving people an opportunity to learn from our mistakes, and also we're learning from others, because people's perceptions are different. You have to recognize like the way that people move through this reality in this time is just so completely different from yours. And then there's also the issue of like lack of awareness, for so many people, where like if the shadow side of Pisces is really real in somebody, there's like a complete lack of accountability. And that is, I think, the beauty of the ecliptic between Pisces and Virgo energy, is that balancing act of opposites, of boundless love and intuition, and also incredible just self-value and appreciation, and also like protection of sacredness in purity of spirit, which I think Virgo in its light really embodies, is like, and Virgo is the child too, so it's like protecting the sacred child, the inner child. These are themes that are so loud right now, especially for me. So I kind of just channeled the astrology really here for you guys today. I really feel like that it just started streaming through. And yeah, thank you so much if you've been watching this far and you've been listening to this channeling. I'm really excited because I think that I'm unlocking a door as to what exactly this podcast is serving. As far as sharing the astrology and really like opening the thematics and the themes of like why I get so jazzed about this stuff, because it just makes sense. Just makes sense. And yeah, so coming at you live here, tuning in heart and spirit. And I am so excited. I'm gonna get off this podcast and come up with an outline for the next episode for next Monday here for you guys. I hope that you're all doing so well out there. I really appreciate you guys. And if you're tuning in on YouTube or Spotify or Facebook, definitely give me a like, follow, or subscribe. I really appreciate the share. It feels like being the type of being that I am in this time, that like there is some elements of shadow ban going on and I don't really understand it, nor do I really care, but I'm curious to see if like we can actually push this stuff out there together, and that would be really meaningful to me. Yeah, and thank you all so much for your messages about the first episode from last week with Robin. It was really fun and awesome for us to be able to do that as the first episode of the podcast. And I'm really, really looking forward to having this opportunity to share all of this with you guys going forward, all of my passions and gifts with astrology. And yeah, looking forward to the growth, you guys. This is it. This is our time. And sending you all so many blessings and healing, the deepest, most beautiful, profound healing for you through this Pisces full moon. And yeah, talk to you guys next week. Aloha.